Hello and welcome along to HTML Basics with your host Robert Smith. In this part 1 of creating a flexible layout using Dreamweaver and HTML and CSS, I want to show you what we're talking about here. Now up to this point the layouts we've been creating in Dreamweaver have been what's called fixed layouts. Let's show you what that means. If I go to Google Chrome like this, this is a page from a site we've been working on. Now if I drag my window in like this, you'll notice that as the window goes to the edge of the page, it just keeps going in and the page doesn't react to it at all. It just stays the same width like that. Doesn't matter what you do. Okay, and that's called a fixed width layout. Now that's all very well and good if you're only creating for a desktop. But with the modern approach to web design, you've got to be creating for desktops, tablets, phones, etc., which have various or different widths if you like. So let's get rid of that. Let's just close that and let's have a look at an example of what I mean by a flexible layout. Here we are, this, or fluid, you might want to call it fluid, some people call it responsive. Okay, now as you can see, as I drag it in, the image gets smaller, the text will realign itself, and let's just zoom it back out again. So as you can see, it's reacting to the width of the browser window, and this is very, very important with modern web design. It puts a lot of restrictions on what you can actually do, but it looks a lot better over various mediums. Okay, so let's get stuck in. Let's start. I'll just go. I've got a page set up here. All I've got is a basic HTML5 page with nothing in it, but I do have a CSS style sheet attached to it. So let's have a look at that. Now we can look at it like by double clicking here, but it's much easier to go over to your source code and just have a look what I've got. What I've got here to start off with is what's called a CSS reset. As discussed in previous videos, whenever you put any tag into a page and preview in a browser, it will attract a little bit of space around it. Now that's default from most browsers, want to put space around your tags. So what we're doing here with these three rules here, we're just saying get rid of all the margins, the padding and border on all of these tags. That's just a shorthand way of doing it. We also have a thing here called font size, because we're going to be working with what's called relative sized fonts, and there's a video all about that. We're not going to give things a fixed size. They're going to be relative to each other. Now more of that later, how that works, but just put that in there to start off with, and we're ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do, go back to our source code, is to style a couple of tags. And the first tag we're going to style, even though it's up here already, is the HTML tag. So I'm going to click plus like this. I'm going to go to tag. Now let's remind ourselves the HTML is the mother of all tags. It contains everything to do with a web page. I'm going to click OK like this. Now all I want to do is give it a background color. So I'm going to go to this color here, this grayish color, and click OK. Now if I go to design view, you'll notice nothing's happened. Now this is a trap for young players, because Dreamweaver seems to have trouble rendering the HTML tag. So if you go to a browser like Google Chrome will do, you'll notice now, yes, it has worked. It has got a grey background, and that's exactly what we want. That's our page. That's the whole HTML tag you're looking at there. Okay, now we need to style our body tag. To do the same thing, now we haven't put any content in yet, we're just setting up our page. So I'm going to go to tag body like that and OK. Now here's where it's a little bit different to what we've been doing up to this point. In our box we're going to give it a percentage rather than a pixel width, a set width, 90%. So what we're saying is the body tag will take up 90% of the width of the whole HTML page. Doesn't matter how wide it is, if you drag it to a narrow perspective or really wide, it doesn't matter. It will just take up 90% of that width, and everything will adjust accordingly. Very clever, really. I'm going to go to my background color. I'm going to give it a background color of white. My box, I'm going to go to auto for right margin, auto for left margin, and OK. Now I also need to actually give it a depth, because we won't be able to, because as it has no content like most tags, unless you put some content within it, you won't be able to see it. So in my box, I'm going to give it a height of, say, give it 1,000 pixels. Now you're probably saying, why am I using percentages and pixels? It doesn't matter. We're going to get rid of this once we start to put content in. We're just going to put that in at the moment so we can actually see it. And I'm going to click OK like that. And let's have a look at that. I'm going to preview that in Google Chrome. And there it is. That's exactly what we want. As you can see, there's our body. The width is 90% of the browser window. So really it's got 5% on that side and 5% of that side, then 90% for the body. And as we drag it like this to the left, you'll see that the body is reacting. It'll always only be 90% of that window. It doesn't matter how wide it is. Very clever indeed. Okay, let's put a bit of content in. It looks a bit bare at the moment, so I'm going to go inside my body tag. As always, whatever appears on the page is inside this body tag. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a div. Layout object div tag, and I'm going to give it a class straight away of header. We've discussed classes in previous videos, how to use them. And I'm going to make a new CSS rule at the same time, just to save time. You'll notice that Dreamweaver knows what's going on. We want to style a class. It's called .header, and it's index.css. So I'm going to click OK, and all I'm going to do is go to my box and type in 100%. And just click OK. Like that, and OK. Now, right now, nothing much is going to happen in our design. If we go to a design view, we have a div here, and you'll notice it's 90% of the width, like that, but it doesn't have any content. Okay, so let's get back to our code. Let's put some content in so we can see it. Now, the key to it is that our header is 100% of width, 100% of what, you might say. Well, it's 100% of the width of the body tag, so it's exactly the same width as the body tag. So as the body tag shrinks and expands, this div will do the same thing. It'll shrink and expand along with it. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so let's just get rid of that placeholder text there. Let's go to insert layout objects. So actually won't do that, we'll go to image instead. And because we set our page up correctly, there's the header tag we want, or the header image we want. I'm going to click open. Now the alternative text, again for the vision impaired, I'm going to put in, let's say, header graphic. Like that. I should be a little bit more descriptive than that, but that'll do. Like this. Now the trick to flexible layouts is not to give it a width or a height, because if we leave these in there, it'll just stay at those widths and those heights. We don't want that, so I'm going to just delete that. I could have written that probably just as quick. Okay, so let's have a look what we've got. I'm going to preview that in Google Chrome. Save that. Yes. Look at this. Fantastic. Now there seems to be a bit of a problem. That image is not reacting to what's going on. The reason is we need to tell that image tag to be 100% of its container, which of course is that div tag. So let's go and write a rule to do that. So if I click in here, now I could have it like this, as specific as that, the header image if I like. And I might not, I'll just make it less specific. Now we've looked at this in how this works. It tells me it's a compound selector here because it's got two. It's got the actual div like that, or the class, and it's got what's inside that class. We can have it like that, or we can have it less specific. That's what this means here. I can click on that and we'll just be working on the image. So if I go less specific like that, I'm just going to be working on the image tag, and OK, and all I want to do is go into my box and make it 100% as well. And let's go OK and preview that in Google Chrome. That's exactly what we want. Now as you can see, as the page size changes, everything reacts to it. It becomes fluid or flexible, whatever term you want to use for it. And for example, if someone was watching it on an iPad, they would probably see it like this, about this wide to start off with. And you'll notice it's 90% of the viewing area. And on a phone, it'll probably come down a bit less than that. Very nice indeed. So we can just zoom that across there as much as we like. Now, there is a bit of an issue with this, okay, because we could just keep going forever and ever, but what is good form is probably to give it a maximum width, okay, for our body tag. In other words, we don't want it to keep going forever. We want it to get to a certain width, say on a desktop, and then just stop doing this, okay? So to do that, I'm going to go into my body tag, and actually I'm not going to go in there, I'm going to go into the actual CSS itself. And in here, I'm going to put just before the height, I'm going to put a turn, and I'm going to put max. I'm looking for max width here, so there it is, max width. I'm going to give it a maximum width of 1100 pixels. Now again, why am I using pixels? Because that's an absolute measure. So let's see what that does. That's as far as we want it to actually go. We don't want it to be responsive once it gets past 1100 pixels. Okay, as you can see, it's a bit hard on this screen, but here I am with my 90%. It's taking up 90%. Till that body tag becomes 1100 pixels wide, and when it does, it'll just stop getting bigger, and then the background, as you can see just at that point there, will just get wider, but the image will just stay at 1100 pixels. So that's quite good form. Don't forget to do that, because if you don't, if you're on a massive monitor, it'll just keep going and going forever and ever. In the minimum size, it doesn't really matter so much. It's only on the max. Okay, so what have we done in this part one? We've looked at setting up our document using the HTML as the mother of all tags, then the body tag. We've given it a percentage, and that's the key. It's a percentage of the actual browser window. And then we've put in a div tag, and it's going to be 100% of its parent, which is the body tag, and then an image inside that, and that image will be 100% of its parent, which is in this case will be that div tag. And that's it. Now we can add some more content. Okay, see you in part 2.